Welcome to the Secret Life Podcast. Tell me your secret. I'll tell you mine. The best way to support the show is to subscribe and share. If you haven't left a review or ratings on iTunes, please do. It helps more people find our show. And if you want to be on it, please shoot me a note at secretlifepodcast@icloud.com. Hi, welcome to the Secret Life Podcast. I'm Brianne Davis Gant, and today we will pull back the curtains of all human secrets. You know, those deep, dark ones we hold inside of us and we're going to take to our deathbed, or those silly and embarrassing ones that we would not tell a soul. You know, the how, what, when, where, and why of it all. So today, my guest is Lisa. And Lisa, I have a question for you. Dun, 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 dun. What is your secret?
Well, my secret that I've had a lot of shame, around this, and in recent years with doing the inner work, that shame has lifted. But it's something that I carried with me for a very long time into my 50s, is that I used to use abortions as a form of birth control.
Oh, okay. So when did this start? Like, when was the first time?
My first abortion was, I think, around 17 and a half, 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And that was with my boyfriend. I was always very irresponsible with doing self-care, with taking responsibility for my body and using birth control, like all my other friends were doing.
Well, for me, I'm allergic to birth control. So that was never an option for me. It would make me insane. And my other females in my family are too. So did you, like, the first time you got pregnant, did you not use any protection at all?
No.
Just young? And
I never
pull-out
used
method
protection.
Did you do that?
It was the 80s. We were willing to deal with like the risk of STDs. But when we heard like we had to start wearing condoms because, AIDS was obviously, my cousin was one of the first generation to die of AIDS, and it hit hard and fast.
Oh, wow.
And so it was for those of us in the 80s that were having unprotected sex, sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Yeah.
It was a wake-up call for a lot of us that were out there, with multiple partners. And so I don't mean to trivialize AIDS, but it was something that for this recovering sex and love addict, I was like, oh, what an inconvenience that we have to wear, rubbers now. I don't like rubbers. I don't like the feel of it. And yeah, I was very irresponsible. I did not take responsibility for my body. And so when I got pregnant, I would go and have an abortion. And those are not the only abortions I've had.
No, I just have a question about the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So where did you go? I mean, do you remember the feeling of you walking into the office, or like, how did that go?
Something that I know that it's been consistent throughout my life until I started doing the inner spiritual work is I was always able to disassociate from my body. And I learned to do that very early on when I was sexually abused from the time I was 5 till we believe around the time I was 11 by my stepfather.
Did you carry that secret too for a long time?
Yeah, I didn't share that until I was 18 years old. And It started at 5. And the first therapist that I actually shared this with, she leaned forward on her chair. She's like, "You've never shared this with anyone?" And I said, "No." And she said, just once, just it happening once to a child is enough trauma to cause this, she basically said the normal development of the brain.
Oh, yeah.
Just once. So she said the fact that it happened so repeatedly for so many years and that I never shared it with anyone. She said the percentage, the likelihood of me committing suicide or becoming a drug addict or going into prostitution were so high. And this was when I started seeing her. I was already 23, 22, 23 was when I started seeing her.
Well,
And
you
so
even
this is
saying
so,
that
yeah,
makes sense to me that you
yeah,
were so disconnected with
yeah.
safe sex because sex
So,
was already tainted. It was
yeah,
already, there was so much trauma around
yeah,
it that I, everything you're saying makes sense.
yeah. So there was no self-care, putting not only, my body at risk, but also to get, STDs. And so when I went to my first one, I can't tell you today what I felt. I would be
Just
lying to you.
floating out of your body, not even present.
Completely disconnected. And then I went 2 other times, completely disconnected. I never knew just how much trauma I also was putting my body in. No
Oh,
judgment,
yeah.
but now that I know what I know, medically, I was putting my body in a lot of trauma, and that could have caused a lot of scarring.
Mm.
And it didn't, because I got pregnant with my first child, that I had made 3 appointments to go get an abortion, but this one I couldn't.
Mm.
This one I couldn't.
Why you mentally couldn't do it, or it was past the time that you could do it, or it just was something bigger than you was stopping you? Yeah.
Yeah, this one I couldn't. There was something about this one, because I
Wow.
made the appointments 3 times.
And you just kept canceling them and just
I would
an
no
inner
forget
voice.
canceling them is way too responsible. You're giving me way too much credit. I just wouldn't show up. I was a no-show.
So after you were officially pregnant, and how did you feel during your pregnancy?
Mind you, I was 20 years old.
I can't imagine.
I felt for the first time there was something greater than myself that
Mm.
I now had a reason to live for. Yeah. If I felt like my body was so holy.
Doing this act that women are our bodies are made to do.
Yeah. Like
So
for the
then
first time.
it felt like you were
It
honoring.
felt for the first time like there was something holy about my body, because since I was 5, I felt dirty.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So after you gave birth, did
Mm-hmm.
it happen again? Did you go back?
Abortion.
Yeah.
So no, I got pregnant with her brother 16 months later.
You are very fertile.
Well, and I've had guilt. I mean, let's talk about guilt.
Yeah, please.
I have friends that are very responsible, did everything right, planned everything in their lives, had college funds set up the minute that her and her partner got together. I have several of these situations. Have money, have education, and they can't get pregnant. And I don't know, like, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know a lot about the universe, but that to me is baffling. I got pregnant like you look at me and I'm getting pregnant. And so I got pregnant with my second child 16 months later. My marriage was falling apart.
Oh, wow.
It was a very tumultuous, abusive marriage. And basically, I'm not pointing the finger at him. We both basically trauma bonded.
Yeah, that's normally how it works
And
in
so
dysfunctional relationships.
Yeah, I chose someone that repeated my trauma. And so I was going to get an abortion for my second one too, but I couldn't, which is crazy because the marriage was just like horrific. And I couldn't, this one I couldn't. So I wish I could tell you that there was no more abortions after that. But there was one between the second one and the youngest child.
So you have 3 children. So there was another one in between. Was it with your ex-husband or?
No, no.
Was it a just look at you and you got pregnant situation?
Well, I mean, I could say, look at me and I get pregnant, but the reality of it is I was not taking responsibility. Like, what happens when you're not on the pill and you're not using a condom? That's what happens. And so what I did was I lied and said that I miscarried because I didn't want him to know that I aborted.
That must have been what made you make that decision at the time? Do you remember?
Yeah. I was in a relationship that I'm like, this is horrible. Like, he was cheating. He was, yeah. But here's what I want to say. And I, before I decided, like, I have so many secrets that I'm like, okay, which one do I want to share? And I can laugh about that now because I've done the inner work and I've let go of that shame, because I realized that the girl that was making those decisions was recreating her trauma. I was in what we call in recovery. I was in my disease.
Yes.
And so I'm not that person. And so now I could say, like, that those decisions, I made at that moment, that time in my life. And I honestly thought they were the best decisions. And so I did some writing about this when I decided, okay, this is a secret I'm going to share. And what came up for me when I was writing is I've used abortions as a form of birth control. I've used abortions to manipulate men to feel bad by lying that I had an abortion or a miscarriage, and I had not. I've used abortions to get some money when I needed some money. And I've used it to manipulate, to make men feel bad for me and then want to take care of me. And
wow. When we do things that we're not proud of in our disease and then being willing to share them so open and honestly it takes such bravery, and especially this day and age where people like to judge. So I just have to honor you by saying thank you so much. Now, with this secret specifically, and what do you think, some people don't like the 7 deadly sins. I think it's a part of humanity. So which of these sins are attached to this secret? And they are pride, greed, lust, gluttony, envy, anger, sloth. Any of them go with this secret, you feel?
I would say fear and lust. I forgot, is fear one of them, or anger?
No, but I still love fear. Everything's attached to fear, but there's pride. There's greed.
Fear. I keep on going back to fear.
She's just saying fear. She loves fear.
Can we add an 8th deadly sin?
I wish we could. I feel like all of those go with fear.
I feel like fear is at the root of all of them for me.
Right. Oh, completely. I agree.
Right? Like for me, like when I'm in lust, I believe that I'm in fear that something outside of me, is going to, I need it. I need it now. I'm going to manipulate it. I'm going to make it, I'm going to force it, like that, just that lust. Like, I can't stop until I have that.
That's almost like greed too, though. Like you're greedy. Right. It's not just greed with money. It's like greed with like.
So greed. We could go.
What about anger? Do you think anger was attached to it? With the trauma?
Yeah, I had a lot of anger towards men.
Yeah, me too.
I had a lot of. How could I not? Like, I had a lot of anger towards men, and I was very nonchalant about those. I was very nonchalant about sex. Like, I've had people tell me, like, "You're like a dude."
Yeah, the people used to say that about me too.
You're like a dude. Like, you. And I had a lot of pride about that. Like, I don't catch any feelings. Like, you guys are here for me. It's like,
and discard.
You do,
and
you do what I want when I want it. You're not calling me. I'm going to be calling you.
And
go.
And I think I felt the same way. And you and I've talked about that before, but it's so lovely when you do that inner work and then you see a man has just the same feelings as a human. You see them for the first time.
Well, for me, what happened was when I had my middle child,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a boy, and then all of that, like remorse, and like for the first time, I was like, oh dear God, I hope he never meets a woman like me. Like, I just, like everything flashed, which I can only imagine for men when they've been like, just horrible to women having a daughter.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure like every single face of every woman, like everything they've ever done, I'm sure flashes before before their eyes. And that's what, yeah, that was really hard. That was really hard. My little sensitive
But
middle child.
what like a God shot is that? Because I have a son too. And that was also for me, I had the same behaviors that I have a son now. If someone broke his heart or hurt him, I want to kill him. So I would never want him to meet someone that was like me either, how I was in the past. So what a
Yeah.
God shot. I mean, did you feel that when you had him and you knew that you were having a son? Like, did you think you went to a deeper level of healing since having a son?
I feel that the healing that I've had through being, through motherhood, just in general, that healing is what forced me to start doing the inner work. But it still took well into my 20s and 30s, because I'm a really good, I'm not an actor by profession, but I'm a really good actor. And so you never know what's going on. And so although I didn't do the deep inner work, I do believe that motherhood had me now start taking a look, obviously, of the 7 deadly sins and how I operated from, lust and gluttony and sloth and pride. And I didn't know about those the 7 deadly sins back then.
Right.
That didn't start, that wasn't introduced to me until I got into recovery.
Mm-hmm.
I think that movie 7 with Brad Pitt.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that was like the first time that I learned of the 7 deadly sins, but I didn't walk out of that movie theater thinking, wow, I need to take a look at my life. And,
Oh, no, I didn't either.
Yeah, it was just like, oh my gosh, that movie was really intense, and that was it, call it a day. But yeah, I do know today, looking back on my life, that it started, that healing, literally my body, that healing started happening when I had my first child. But it really took me a long time to really do the work. And it was actually when they got older, because I saw these little humans were going, like, they weren't babies anymore.
Yeah. They could see you. They saw you.
Yeah. Like they started seeing me. And when they get into their tweens, especially the girl, I think boys are much more forgiving of their mothers, but daughters are like, all right, lady. I always say daughters and mothers, seriously, they are our teachers. We get, daughters are like, I'm not going to give you no grace. We need to take a look at some shit here.
So going back to this secret, who do you think, if you looking back on it, who did it benefit and who did it harm?
I don't know. You're making me dig really deep here.
She's giving me her sideways eye that she likes to do. Just so you guys know, since you can't see her.
What side eye? I think it benefited both of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it affected me the most.
It harmed you the most.
Yeah, because it's shame and guilt that I felt that, by the way, if you would have asked me back then, I would have been like, no, like that's what I can't have a child right now and call it a day. So, and I'm sure those men were like, oh, thank you, God. It's like, thank you. And I'm so happy that she's like cool about it. And like, oh my gosh, this is horrible what I'm going to share, but you know what? I'm not going to judge it. I'm just going to say
No,
it.
do not judge. Listen, everybody has dark secrets. Do not judge. That is not the point.
I remember asking a doctor, I mean, I'm in my 20s, so my hormones are like, let's go. And I'm in my sex addiction. I remember like asking the doctor, like, how soon can I have sex? Because, you're supposed to wait a couple of days. And I was like, what? Like, I'm sure that
You're like, I have to heal? I have to heal from this?
Yeah. Sure. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Just crazy.
No, I mean, what happens. You don't think logically.
That's
no, like when you're in your disease. Yes.
Yeah. When we're in our disease, someone else that I would share this with, they would be like, I mean, I can't even, this is not something that I share. Yeah.
At the coffee shop with the stranger? No, I know
with
that.
The PTA moms.
Yeah.
When I would go out, like, when I would put on that facade and sit with the PTA moms, it would be talking about, how long they planned.
Oh my. No, but the point of this and you sharing this is that people don't feel so alone. We all do bad things. We've all do things we're not proud of, that we have shame around, but that doesn't make who you are truly as a person.
Yeah.
And sometimes we do things to survive. You were taken advantage of as a very young child.
Right.
So of course you don't put value on your body or sex because that was taken away from you. That was robbed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it makes sense. And now that you are healthy and you see you did those things because you didn't want to feel and you needed to survive and you're not that person. That was just a symptom of your trauma.
Exactly. You put it so eloquently. That was just a symptom of my trauma.
So how do you move forward in the future now? Like, how have you changed?
Oh, geez.
$1 million question.
Yeah, we would need a whole hour. But what comes to mind, just off the top of my mind, how I've changed is the compassion, the amount of compassion that I have for that. Not so much, I mean, obviously for my little girl, but for that teenager, for that young adult, for Lisa in her 20s, doing the best she could. She was in so much pain, much pain, and then, I've always was very good about wearing masks. No one knew. So today, that is some of the, just, I'm thinking this, I'm processing it while I'm answering it. But I would say that just the compassion that I have for myself, the self-care that I give my body.
I want to ask about this too. Do you use sex anymore in any way? Or is it, have you healed that relationship?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I treat my body as my temple. And so you don't enter the temple unless you're safe and unless we have matching energies spiritually, emotionally, and physically. I'm postmenopausal, so that's a whole other conversation.
That is.
But yeah, self-care is a huge part of my healing process. And I did EMDR treatments.
What is that?
Trauma treatment. And for people that don't know, there's a lot of resources to heal from trauma. And your body muscles are one of the last layers of your body it has muscle, your muscles have memory.
Of course, yes.
And so not only does that impact the brain, but also my muscles have memory of the physical abuse. And so the EMDR treatments help me a lot with releasing and healing from the physical abuse. So I would say that today I honor my body, and that's how I'm healing. I'm reparenting that little girl, and I'm not putting her in harm's way. So that's another way that I'm healing one day at a time.
Well, yeah. Oh, thank you so much for coming on and talking so openly about this.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And I honor you.
and more importantly, I honor me.
Yeah, good. I love that. Well, thank you for listening to Secret Life Podcast. I'm Brianne Davis Gant. If you want to be on the show and you have a past secret that you've been through and you're on the other side, or a present one you're still holding on to, email me at secretlifepodcast@icloud.com. And thank you for listening. Until next time. Thank you again for listening to Secret Life Podcast. Please subscribe, share, send me a note, and you can always support the show with a donation on our site, secretlifepodcast.com. Until next time, bye.